I was a violin performance major as an undergrad and was a child development minor. In terms of salaries at startups,
To start with how you chose nursing.
I always knew I wanted to work with children. Maybe I'll be a teacher. And at one point I was like, oh, I'm going to be a child psychologist. And in college, I was actually volunteering at the Children's Hospital. The Monroe Carroll Children's Hospital is attached to Vanderbilt University and Vanderbilt Medical Center. So I was just volunteering there as a student. And I got to see what the nurses were doing with the patients and just how they were this amazing role of obviously taking care of them physically, playing with them, building those relationships and making, a scary hospital stay actually something fun for these kids. When I saw them doing that, I was like, wow, that is really cool. That seems like exactly what I want to do. I think that was my freshman year of college, I made that pivot and I was like, all right, I got to figure out how am I going to go to nursing school?
Did you go into pediatric nursing after you graduated with your BSN?
I was a violin performance major as an undergrad and was a child development minor. And I was trying to figure out, okay, there is a school of nursing here. How does this work? I met with a few people and did a little bit of research and learned that actually the program at the Vanderbilt School of Nursing, they didn't have a BSN, but they had the entry into nursing programs. And so I finished my undergraduate and did a bunch of the prerequisite courses during my undergraduate career, went into their bridge program as a master's student. The first half of that program was to prepare you to sit for the NCLEX. And then the second half of the program was actually the master's nurse practitioner side of it. And that's when I was doing pediatric nurse practitioner program there.
Oh, that's super interesting. I know that there are a lot of non-nursing majors who go through the ABSN course. You did BSN plus MSN and became a pediatric NP.
Just to clarify, there are some programs where it's like an accelerated BSN and you have your BSN at the end. The program at Vanderbilt, I don't know if it's changed since then, but at the time, you don't get your actual BSN, like the Bachelor of Science in Nursing, since you already have a bachelor in something else, they prepare you to sit for the NCLEX and you get your RN licensing that way.
That's a route that I didn't know about.
Yeah, there's all these very interesting inroads into nursing. And I've seen different programs have different setups. Some of them focused on making sure the first half of it is that BSN portion. And so when you leave, that is what's on your degree. And there's others that are like the Vanderbilt program where they prepare you to sit for the NCLEX, but it's not you don't leave adding a Bachelor of Science in Nursing.
You got your pediatric nurse practitioner degree in practice as a PNP, but also went back to get your doctorate in nursing practice at Johns Hopkins. Could you tell us more about why you make that decision?
I had a sense, even when I was a nursing student, that I wanted to go back and teach. I just had really great relationships with different instructors and professors and just realized that would be something I'd love to do. While I'm still practicing, I'd love to spend time teaching and working with students. And so knowing that was kind of in my plans, I knew that getting a doctorate degree was going to be helpful, not only for just preparing to be a professor, but then also just in terms of whatever was going to come my way in nursing in the future. Having that experience, having that understanding was going to be something that I should be prepared for. And that's why I decided to make that decision.
Are you into teaching now, or what do you do in the field of nursing?
Well, I am still teaching on a part-time basis. So I usually teach about one course a semester at Hopkins. So I'm still doing that, which is I just really enjoy. It's really fun to not only work with the other instructors and professors at the university, but with the students and to hear, again, lots of inroads into nursing. So kind of hearing where people have come from and what their plans are. So that's really fun. For my full-time work, I'm actually working at a startup company called PocketRN, and I'm the director of nursing there. And so I've been there for about a year and a half now.
What do you do as a nursing director at PocketRN? Could you tell us what your role entails and what your day looks like?
I wear a lot of different hats. I think that's kind of the beauty of a startup is that, it's usually a fairly small group and you work on a lot of different projects. So one thing that I've really enjoyed is just getting exposed to a lot of elements of a healthcare startup. I get to work a lot with the product teams and engineers. Obviously, they do the hard work of, building the product and coding and things like that. But what I've learned is my experience as a nurse and working with other nurses, there are some perspectives that I'm able to share with them in terms of what the display and the user interface look like. So I've been a part of those those conversations. Our work, when we work with different partners and healthcare systems or clinics, there's a really big what we call like an implementation piece. Having clinical experience, understanding how a clinic works, understanding how an inpatient unit works is really important to understanding like how we partner with them when they're using our platform and technologies. There's also a piece in terms of being available to the nurses that are working on the platform, whether it's, the training aspects or the onboarding aspects or building that community of nurses that are working together. I get to also be a part of different conversations that we have with potential partners, because a lot of it is meeting new health systems, organizations, agencies, and talking about our product and seeing if they're interested in partnering with us.
PocketRN connect nurses online, whether it's post-ops or before going to emergency rooms, for example.
It's a virtual nursing platform where patients can video chat with nurses. Use cases that you just called out are exactly right. So it can be in the form of triage or questions that patients have trying to navigate and figure out, what do I do? Do I need to go to the emergency room? That kind of scenario happens. But then there's also like that proactive side where nurses can also reach out to check up on people after they've been discharged or after they've had a procedure. We've had a lot of different models of care, and sometimes it's very much in a partnership with a specific provider or clinic. We also have some kind of open it up to right now, like in California, we have patients who hear about us through a retirement community that they live in or other avenues.
How did you know about this role at PocketRN? How was the transition from seeing patients and teaching to the startup side of things?
It was not in my plan. Like if you asked me a couple years ago if I was going to do this, I probably would scratch my head and wonder like, why would I do that? Or what would they want from me? I guess this would be my one plug of how important it is to build relationships and network with people, because that's really how I heard about the role to begin with. My husband is a lot better at this. He has worked in consulting and in government and all these different kind of arenas. And so he learned the importance of building relationships and having networks, wherever you go. Through that, I've learned to be better about those kinds of things. We have a relationship with this group called Breakline. They do these really great programs where they help veterans transition to the tech world. They have other programs that help women transition to the tech world. They have another program where they help people of color transition into the tech world. My husband's gone through like their program. Through them, they're actually the ones who heard that PocketRN was hiring for this role. And they reached out to me and sent the job description and was like, would you be interested? And again, it was not on my radar, but I read through the job description and I was like, I never thought that I could use my nursing experience in this way. This sounds really interesting. I did the interview. I kind of went in like, I don't know if this will work out or if it's the right fit, but let's try it out and see how it goes. But it all came from just having a network. I mean, without that, I wasn't actively looking for a job in a healthcare startup.
There are so many different roles that nurses can take. We just don't know about them or don't hear about them. Having that network of people, being open-minded, I think can open a lot of doors for nurses as well.
I definitely agree. And it's not a bad idea to have a plan about your career, but yeah, it's okay to kind of veer off of it, especially if an unusual and exciting opportunity comes up, right? And so that's kind of what it happened to me. And I had to make a decision, like, do I want to try something that's very different and new, or do I want to stick with my original plan? And there's not saying that one way is good or bad, but being open to new opportunities, even if it wasn't really on your radar, I think can be a really good, valuable, meaningful experience.
I think a lot of people are curious about how salary works in a startup world. And for a nursing director, could you share that with us and different benefits compared to working at a hospital with patients?
In terms of salaries at startups, it really kind of depends on where the startup is in their life cycle. If they're very early on, probably will be limits in terms of what your salary can look like. And then as you go through different stages of funding, and then kind of depending on the relationships the startup has, that will determine kind of what's available in the budget. It's always a delicate balance, from a startup company's perspective, because you have to grow your team at the right speed for the kind of work that you need to do and the amount of work that you need to do, but always be be mindful of spend, right? In general, nursing world, it's tricky. You see online, there's a lot of conversation about nurses feeling like they're not paid accordingly. And I've definitely had sentiment or that experience in the past. There's always like limitations, right? If you work at a really small private practice, there's going to be limitations with the budget. Salary discussion can be very difficult. If you work in a really large health system, it might be like a very rigid structure based on years of experience. Even if you're trying to advocate for a pay raise, or, it may not be so easy because they have to make it level across the board. Say for the salary piece, I'm someone who's like, those conversations are very uncomfortable. Like, I don't know how to start the conversation. It always makes me feel a little bit awkward, but I think the more you do it, the easier it gets. It's an important conversation to have, and it's important to push yourself even when you're uncomfortable, because I think innately as nurses, like, we want to do a good job. We want to help people. And oftentimes we go above and beyond. You work really hard and you want to make sure that you're getting paid fairly. If you don't speak up for yourself, then who's going to? And I think overall, the more you talk to other people, it helps. I would become close with different people and peers, and we would have between us be very transparent about our salaries. And sometimes that conversation in of itself would be very eye-opening, because like you might think this is fair for my level of experience and where I am in the country. And then you talk to someone else who has basically the same experience and in the same area, and maybe they're getting paid a lot more than you. And you realize like, okay, either I need to negotiate that where I'm at right now, or look for a job somewhere else to see if I can find something that's more fair for like the amount of time and effort and work that I'm putting into it. Building those friendships and relationships where you can talk really openly about stuff like that is really helpful.
Able to share that information and talking about money makes it more comfortable to negotiate whether you're getting like salaried fairly. A lot of nurses, we are not comfortable sharing our salaries and what we get paid. And we don't really learn this in school as well, how to negotiate, what is the adequate amount for salary. We also have the sentiment, our nurses, we work for other people, and it's okay for not to get business minded.
Early on the career, it's also really hard, because I remember being in that position and being like, oh, I just want a job. So it's very easy to just think, okay, well, I'm just going to take it because they want me. Confidence in your abilities as a nurse as well. It also helps you be more confident about those kinds of conversations. Like, I can't think of one where like you wouldn't need a nurse's perspective, to be honest.